would have loved not to need to spend thousands of pounds and to have other people that I know spend thousands of dollars to fly to a different country because the institutions are stuck in an era of gatekeeping, comfortableness, and quite frankly, whatever your dog said.
Excuse me.
Oh, here's one that I think is sort of common. If you pull most of the way out, sperm won't make it all the way up, and she won't get pregnant. That's not true.
Most of the way.
That's not true. That's how you become a parent.
No, I think things are getting worse in a way as a reaction. It's Christian nationalism is what it all stems from. That's what we're seeing happen with the Supreme Court. And at the base of Christian nationalism is patriarchy. That's what they're built on. And so
Sure.
I think as they are pushing back and as they're trying to gain that last bit of power, because I do think in the end their numbers are dwindling. This is like their last ditch effort. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, unfortunately.
I appreciate that my sister's girlfriend has completely stopped eating pineapple because my sister is deathly allergic to pineapple. And so she doesn't want to have it, on her lips or in the house or whatever else. And that makes sense. I mean, it's pineapple, right? Like, I'm not talking about, going kosher or whatever,
Right.
but at the same time, I think that we would sort of assume in that situation that you would make that choice. And it comes back to, well, what is the impact on me? Because if the impact on me is I'm annoyed that you're eating something I don't want you to eat, that's different. If the impact on me is I'm going to go into anaphylactic shock, okay, that's that's a conversation worth having.
Just lighten this up just a little bit. I was looking up the monkeypox article on the CDC website, and it's describing the symptoms. It reads as follows: people with monkeypox get a rash that may be located on or near the genitals. Then goes on to clarify penis, testicles, labia, and vagina, or anus, and then in parentheses, butthole. So the CDC felt the need to clarify what an anus is.
I guess it's just good that they're getting the information out there. Secular sexuality can't do all the heavy lifting when it comes to teaching people about their bodies.
This is true. So, I mean, if there's one upside, the word butthole now appears on the official
on a formal official government website. Got it.
Yeah. Also, I'm learning that I'm a really bad sub. Apparently, I still try to boss through the gag, and I try to still do stuff with the restraints on. But
yeah. So I remember hearing back when the first vaccines were coming out that some people were having an unexpected side effect of being a little horny when they come back from getting their first injection. And I will say,
internet vaccine conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I guess it's a conspiracy to get.
I like this one a little better.
Yeah, because this one, the first time I got my very first shot, that day I went and shot some content, and normally I do just one sex scene or something. But this time I was doing some trade, and we ended up doing 3 scenes that day. And I was just on fire. I was ready to go. I was feeling really sexual. And so I just got my second round of boosters, I think is where we're at.
Yeah, that's something to turn you on. You can stay safe through all of this. Glad to hear it.
Yep. And so I had it, and it made me feel great, and I was a little poppin' with energy and feeling sexual. So, don't knock it till you go get it. You never know. You might just want to.
Being safe is hot.
The sex doll is like a fleshlight, but it's also your girlfriend. And
I mean, I think it's interesting to think about. I'll definitely say that I feel like your theology might be bad in the sense that, well, I mean, it wasn't an asexual birth. It was immaculate conception from our Lord God and Savior. And
Right.
your biology might be bad in terms of, well, humans don't have asexual births, but your fan fiction is right on point.
Yeah. People talk a lot about like, oh, you've got a lot of confidence, like, oh, you're a big beautiful woman. And I'm like, so I also want to say, like, there are no exceptions. All bodies are beautiful. Fat, thin, middle, no body, green body, blue body, you're a smurf, great. Your body is beautiful.
Thanks for coming in and joining us, and I guess kind of helping us shake off the rust. It's been like a 3-year dry spell. So if I'm a little bit
Wonder why.
awkward, like, don't. I promise this never happens. That sex is not something that we need to think of as like hot and steamy, sexy sex. I mean, yeah, it can be that, but really, I mean, we're just taking like big pieces of meat and slapping them against each other. And if that is not inherently silly and weird and funny and playful, I don't know what is. It took me a long time to deconstruct my faith, in part around that idea of, I guess, human superiority, human specialness. And I'm just so desperate to be able to talk to animals. I don't want to learn anything more about Coco the gorilla. Objectively, Dan ruined that fantasy for me. So I'll be interested to check it out.
Okay, so maybe backing up to like where it started. I
Sure.
was obviously, my name is ex-Christian Aaron. I used to be a Christian. I was raised in a very charismatic Pentecostal conservative fundamentalist church. So for
It's
me,
a lot
that
of
meant,
words that mean the
yeah,
same
I had
thing in really scary ways, just stacked on top of each other.
I thought you were about to say, finally, somebody I'm qualified to talk to. A guy that does a podcast that he does not get paid for. So,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
happy.
you know what? I relate to. I resemble that remark a little bit.
Do things that make you feel good when you're trying to make yourself feel good. So whatever is romance for you, if it's going out camping and doing yourself in a tent, then that's for you. Do that. Do what works for you.
If you can get a video of you watching a video while making it becomes this whole like meta, and then you have like Game of Thrones on in the corner. It's just like it becomes like a good little weird oral thing going on. I don't know.
It's like a porn inception almost.
Yeah, exactly.
A video within a video within a video.
The way that we love, the way that we express ourselves, the way that we sexualize things. I mean, there's so much nuance to that. And our Christian worldview is so much that a man and a woman, and then God somehow, and also sex, and that's it. You don't need to be curious. You don't need to ask questions.
If after I have disclosed to you about me voluntarily and you no longer want to keep dating me, fine. That's your choice. But be polite, treat me like a human, and don't, whatever you do, go into a hysterical patty like you're a 2-year-old.
Science is now coming to a point in the past few decades where we're kind of playing catch up. If you really want to be depressed, look up how recent of a phenomenon feminist archaeological theory is, and how recently we started understanding that women existed for a long time and they did stuff,
making choices, doing
exactly.
things.
And here's a fun fact for you. Chromosomes don't have shit to do with how we define sex in biology. We define it by gamete size. So if you have lots of small gametes, we call those sperm, and we call you a male. If you have very few large gametes, we call those eggs, and we call you a female. What if you're infertile? Do you just not have a sex now? No,
Right.
That doesn't really make any sense, does it?
This next one, very untrue. Everyone loves a finger up the arse.
Oh, everyone.
Please ask for consent before you do.
I mean, I do, but
But not everyone. It can be quite shocking if someone's not prepared for that.
I would probably, I imagine that you would prefer that people assume that consent is necessary before
That's the
jumping
thing.
straight
And a
to
little
that.
preparation, please.
But I might also point out that you don't really notice that you're wearing shoes when your shoes fit well. It's when you try to shove your foot into a shoe that is not the right size that you become incredibly aware of it every step that you take. And so the fact that you feel like you don't have a gender may be because your body, the way that your culture, the way that the people around you recognize you and interact with you lines up and fits with who you actually are. And when that's not the case, it becomes a lot more noticeable. I feel like even before the technology existed to do this, it was like a trope in sex comedies to have the remote controlled sex toy that inevitably like bursts into flames, which is terrifying.
So I recently discovered, where Jesus put my prostate, and it's pretty interesting.
We did a series of episodes last spring looking at Christian nationalism and some of these other movements. And I frankly got to a point where I just stopped asking people for forecasts and predictions of the future because they were bumming me the fuck out.
Do I bring it up to every person? If I, am at the coffee shop and they're like, "Thank you, ma'am," am I necessarily going to go, stop, it's not ma'am?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not.
And I get that. Like I'd like to live in a world where people are not assuming your ma'amness, and where
do not assume my ma'amness.
Really, it's true. If you buy a car, you would hope that the car would let you drive it.
Yeah, I don't ask a vibrator for consent before I turn it on. And, I think that's part of what makes all of this interesting.
The idea of sexual compatibility is non-existent in religion. So there is no such thing as, I had sex with this person, man or woman, and I don't like it. What do you mean you don't like it? You're locked in a marriage.
It's your goddamn duty.
And trust me, I mean no malice whatsoever, really. Of course, it sounds a little funny to all of us. I laugh at it. But then,
this might be the most blasphemous clip we've ever done on this show, which is saying something. So,
Mary had a beard. You don't want to cause any permanent damage. I have had clients who are like, "I want you to bust me until I'm castrated," and I'm like, "That's a great fantasy, but it's not going to happen."
And especially like the insecurity and like self-consciousness that's inherent of like being a teenager, that I'm not gonna watch like cartoons because that's kid stuff, or I'm not gonna like collect action figures anymore because like I'm too grown up for that. Like I can't be playing with that.
Oh, super guilty. I remember specifically being at a Blockbuster Video and having my mom see the movie I had picked out for myself and be like, "Aren't you a little too old for this?" And I never, ever forgot it. Like I did not watch another cartoon for like 15 years.
So are the femcells, do they like consider themselves like a part of the same movement? Would they have points of agreement with the incels and the red pillars, or are they like opposite ends? They don't like each other either.
Yeah, I mean, can we not just like throw a mixer for the incels and the femcells and then make a little nudge, nudge, nudge? Okay, sex is a very scary topic now, but if I can just sign that document, if I can just get that diamond, that somehow magically it's going to be this like fun, exciting thing that all those sinners have been talking about all these years.
And go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say that indoctrination dies harder than John McClane at Christmas time. Absolutely. I heard that he was doing cocaine and he was a cocaine addict or something like that.
I mean,
like,
that's been
he's
true
the
since
one
the 70s.
Hollywood star that hasn't been high as shit since 1987.
If you're not familiar with the term flared bass, make sure to Google that thoroughly before putting anything in your butt. Nobody listening to this should put anything in their butt until they've learned that phrase.
So I really appreciate you bringing up somewhere that people can be safe and possibly fucking move to get out of this fucking shithole.
Yeah, that's it. Everybody move to Canada. That's where
I'll be following you. I'm going to BC. Once my kid turns 18, I'm going to BC.
And I would allow my partners to basically tell me what was good and how I should be. And, I had already internalized the idea that I was wrong. There was, I was doing it the wrong way. My enjoyment and my pleasure was, one, not important, and two, weird and not normal, and, just out of the realm of possibility. And so I ended up just kind of thinking that, well, that must be the case, unconsciously kind of, soaking that idea in. And
they may have had a lot of uncomfortableness with their own body, and they may still have a high level of uncomfortableness with their own body. And The number one rule that I have is, would you ask your mother this question? Or would you ask
I
your
like that
father
standard.
this question?
Yeah.
Would you go to your mother and say, hey, mum, do you have a penis in your panties? Would you say that to your mother? Because if the answer is no, then why would you ask somebody that you're on a date that question?
Female hyenas have a fully erectile penis that does nothing. It's not a real penis; it's a pseudo penis, but it's still erectile. And they are
Erectile
the dominant one.
pseudo-penis is a concept that
Erectile
I was
pseudo-penis.
previously unfamiliar with. I still don't feel like I understand it, but I'm going to repeat it like it's my favorite band.
Right.
So this was from a young man, and he said, my bad sex advice was to have your girlfriend put a mint in her mouth before oral. Not really bad advice in and of itself, but we didn't have any mints. So she grabbed a breath strip and went down on me before it was fully dissolved. And it promptly stuck to my penis and burned with the fury of 10,000 icy suns. And it wouldn't wash off for 5 full minutes. And afterwards, my girlfriend laughed so hard at my convulsing agony that all we could do was go to bed and try and forget that night ever happened.
Oh my goodness.
I don't care who you are. If you've never decided to suck a dick, if you've never decided to kiss a man or a woman or tried some of these different experiences, I would want to know why. You know, there's only so much life that we get on this planet, and to miss out on some fundamental aspect of our humanity or of your identity because you weren't curious enough to try, I would definitely encourage people to be brave here.
The only thing about that wand, we can't call it a Hitachi anymore.
I was about to say, I still have one of the old Hitachis that has like a Honda engine in it, and that thing will never die.
My pornography collection, or not collection, nobody has a collection anymore. But you know, my search history, is
Digital
definitely not-
library.
yeah, my digital library is not.
You got a
just-
bookmarks folder, Jason. Don't lie.
Oh, God.
You know, I'm not interested in sitting around judging people because they didn't fit into my box as to what is and isn't proper. You know, I'm sure my family, my Fundy family, raises an eyebrow at me. You know, Seth is he's down that slippery slope of permissiveness and you know, lascivious, lustful living in the eyes of the Lord. He's carnal, you know, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that about the orgasms with the asexual community. So, believe it or not, there are actually so many different kinds of asexual people as well. And I am best friends with a gay person who now identifies as asexual. He doesn't have any interest in having sex with other people, but his walls in his home are covered with naked men and hard cocks, and he masturbates all the time.
I want to maybe try and take this question of the existence of trans people that we seem to keep bumping into, and do whatever I can to try and make that clear. I think when you're trying to answer the question, what is a woman? There is no singular point that you can come to. And that was a point that I tried really hard to make last week for anybody who caught that conversation. It's important to recognize that there is no single criteria. We've ruled all of them out by talking to really intelligent, well-informed people who will point out that you can't exclusively look at height or weight or gamete size or chromosomes or hormone levels or really any one singular item as definitional for being a man or being a woman, to say nothing of some of these other identities. And so Kara, Adam, I'd love to hear from y'all, but I think maybe the best response that I have for this question is, what is a poet, right? I know that's kind of a silly notion, but we can all sort of acknowledge that we have a general understanding of what a poet is, what a poet does, while at the same time acknowledging that simply writing a poem may not really make you, quote, a poet, and that it is a identity that some people may really attach to and grapple onto for reasons that we can possibly understand, but we're never going to be inside their head and truly understand what it means for them. So ultimately, what is a woman? What is a poet? I don't know that we can answer that in any sort of definitive way.
You need to know at the very least what you want to give a shot. Like, I can't have you come in here blind and me like just say, can I kick you in the balls? Do I have your consent to kick you in the balls? I would be incredibly bored, and it would be very unsexy to constantly be asking for consent to do this.
I think people miss that from the outside. Like I was at Texas A&M when it came out that one of the students there had been very prolifically writing dinosaur erotica.
Amazing.
And everybody was freaking out about it, talking about how, people obsessing over sex with dinosaurs. And to that, I guess I would say, like, yeah, fuck off. People are allowed to want to have sex with dinosaurs. If that's your fantasy, like, whatever, it's a fantasy. Exercising is good advice. Exercising because it'll make you a manly man alpha male is ridiculous.
Yeah, I was looking at some soy conspiracy things, the
Oh,
whole
yes.
soy milk. Soy milk is making men effeminate. That's
Turning
why
all the
men aren't
frogs
men
gay.
anymore.
And
I would sincerely say, and I would really challenge the most monogamous, vanilla, cishet person watching tonight, the person who has been in a happy, healthy marriage for 30 years and has no interest in having sex with anybody else and has no interest in kink. I would sincerely challenge you to find your way to a local munch. And if you really feel comfortable and feel like you have access to it, I would encourage everybody listening to not go their entire life without going to a play party.
You know what I think it is? I think it's that these boring Christian guys don't want depictions of actual good sex in film, because then their partners and wives will be like, wait, that's how it's supposed to be? Ben Shapiro lied to me. What is this?
It's a real vulnerability. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Then they're going to actually have to perform and actually worry about their partner's satisfaction. We can't have that.
Invest in good lubricant, learn your lotions, find out what
Yeah.
feels right for your body, find what feels good for you.
We love lube. So much lube.
Think about when you learned in sex ed or basic biology about sperm fertilizing an egg. Why is it the case that we always describe the egg as the passive recipient of the sperm, rather than, you always have this kind of story about there's this horde of sperms that are, competing and racing against one another to see who can get to the egg first. And we're kind of giving them this sort of masculine, athletic sort of, warrior style
Yeah,
of
we think of it like
description.
survival of the fittest. Like the fittest
Yeah.
sperm is the one that will end up impregnating the egg.
Yeah,
I
and
think you're
the
about to
egg
tell
is
us, Kara,
just
that's not the
sitting there.
case.
That's not the case. The egg actually participates in, absorbing the sperm
Selecting.
and selecting. Yes.
yeah, so nobody's body looks like the really vague drawing in the sex ed class.
Yeah. Well, let me call out real quickly allvulvasarbeautiful.com, which is kind of your online vulva museum, I suppose. I mean, I know that like 97% of the internet feels like it's a vulva museum, but this is presented a little bit more scholastically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kara,
it sounds like maybe is part of the thing that you're wondering about is like, to what extent do you need to unpack that for people when
Yeah.
you're describing it to
Mm.
them? Like,
Yeah,
how,
because I know
that,
if I go
yeah.
to my grandmother with it, she'd be like, "What?"
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
grandma doesn't have
I
to have
get that.
conversation.
Yeah, so that's why you tell grandma bisexual and you tell your queer friends that, you're a cat girl, blah, blah, blah. Like you get into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pansexual nuance and all of those kinds of things. That's super valid, right? Like,
Take some time and schedule some time with yourself.
Mhm.
Like, sit down with yourself and have a date by yourself and understand yourself better. Like, that's the best place to start, right?
on an unrelated note, I will be unavailable Saturday most of the morning and probably into the afternoon. So if anybody needs me, go ahead and get in touch with me now. I'm getting the sense you described her as a narcissist. I have to imagine that your mom is taking up a lot of breathing room around her poor little baby and his life and his sexuality. And I appreciate your desire to kind of step in and white knight him a little bit and rescue him from that fire-breathing dragon situation.
Yeah.
I know this is your mom, who's probably a lovely person for the general sense. I don't mean to be rude at all. You know, I don't want to make light of it, especially since I know that there's obviously a significant, like, differential impact and outcome. But it's worth noting that a lot of what you're saying boils down to don't fuck transphobes. And I feel like that's a good policy for all of us, cis, trans, or otherwise.
The problem, like these guys were saying, is that it's the female pleasure has been so demonized that men don't even think it's a big deal, or like they don't feel like it's their duty. And I'll tell you, having had sex with many women in my time, it is way better when she is into it, and I'm sure all of you can agree. Like when she is like, you know,
what a
raring to
thing
go,
that
just
feels like it should be taken for granted, but absolutely can't be in our society. These are, in fact, medical assistive devices. We're talking about dilators and stents. But I just really appreciate that my professional career has taken me to the extent that I get to talk to somebody about medical grade dildos.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.